right, we keep telling you about this straw poll. Many say it sets the stage, sort of the plates, if you will, for the Republican race here. Rick Perry's non-presence notwithstanding. A man many expect to be in the top 1, 2, 3 positions in that poll. Joining me right now, Ron Paul, the Texas congressman, now the presidential candidate. Congressman, there's some talk that you could win this thing. You think that's the case?
Well, I guess it's always possible. We have the name on the ballot, and we're doing pretty well. But I think most people concede we'll be in the top 3, and my goal certainly has been to do better and a whole lot better than we did 4 years ago. So things are looking pretty good. There's a lot of enthusiasm, but and I imagine everybody's made up their minds by now, because this campaign's been going on for a good many months. Actually, our campaign for liberty, our goal to promote liberty and the Constitution, this has been going on a long time. For me, it's been 30 years, but specifically here in Iowa, at least for 4 years, we've been concentrating on promoting the cause of freedom and limited government.
You know, it wasn't that long ago where the prospect of Ron Paul winning the party's nomination seemed extremely remote. I don't think many people feel that way now. You've been ahead of the curve on a lot of the reckless spending, the piling on of debt. There are famous YouTube clips of you talking about this stuff upwards of a decade ago, and every year and every month since. Is it all coming under the market volatility and what we've seen abroad here, in a perverse sense, reminding people of the stuff you warned about?
Oh, I think so. Even though my broad goal is to promote liberty and limited government in the Constitution, specifically, it has been the economy, because I've dealt with the economy from the 1970s, believing that the monetary system has a lot to do with it, because it's the monetary system and monetary policy and the Federal Reserve that dictates the business cycle. It dictates the inflation, the boom cycles, the busts, the recessions, and the inflation. All of these things come from monetary policy, and that's coming our way. Last year, we had every single Republican in the House support my bill to audit the Fed. Everybody wants to know what the Fed is doing. They created $15 trillion rather recently for the bailout. A third of it went to foreign banks. The people are screaming for an answer from this, and of course, I've been bugging the country and the Federal Reserve and Bernanke and Greenspan for years. So the American people have sort of caught up with that, and I think it's our time to talk about real economic reforms.
What do you think would happen? Let's say you were to win this straw poll, but it's the same day your governor, your Texas congressman, your governor announces he's running for president, and the media pays more attention next day or tonight to Rick Perry announcing than Ron Paul winning.
It's always possible. It would emphasize that people still in the media probably aren't looking at the real answers, and they're looking for the truth. Because if you have a candidate that's part of the status quo and he gets all the attention, where are the answers going to come from? So yeah, that's possible, and I understand what a straw vote is. It's a straw vote.
Well, you feel that you're saying that the governor is... I'm sorry, sir. You say that the governor is part of the status quo?
Oh, everybody knows that. I mean, he had a Tea Party candidate run against him in the last race, got 20% without any money. So, yes, and Texas has done well, but just remember, we haven't had an income tax ever, or a corporate tax, and we have a right-to-work state. No wonder we're doing well. So, yes, after he's an announced candidate, people are going to start asking him a lot of questions, and it'll be a good campaign. But I think that, yes, he will dilute the vote of all the conventional politicians. So those of us who believe in liberty and limited government and looking at the Fed and changing our foreign policy, that's not going to interfere with our goals. He's going to interfere with all, Romney and a few others. He'll just dilute their vote. So I don't think it'll affect our campaign whatsoever.
As a libertarian, or one more of a libertarian mindset where, back off government, that sort of thing, you remind people of unpleasantness to come, of nasty adjustments to come, which goes right against campaigning for President 101, where you're supposed to be honey and mother's milk, and you don't do any of that. Which is why the conventional media says, Congressman, you're going nowhere fast. What do you say to that?
You know, I don't even fully understand that. I go to college campuses, we get turnout, so no matter where I talk, I do talk about the dangers, and if we can keep doing this, how terrible it's going to be and how horrible these wars are and the tragedy we have. But what amazes me is when I talk to the people afterwards, and I talk to a lot of them, shake a lot of hands, it's mostly that of optimism and upbeat. It's sort of like, well, if we declare the truth and know where we are, there's a chance we'll solve our problem. They come away as optimists, but I always do finish my talks because I say there are answers. We're in a mess. It might take a year to adjust, but if we do the right things, at least we'll get back to growth again. You have to liquidate debt and get rid of all the problems and the mistakes. So I am surprised myself. I say, I keep talking about these negative things, and yet everybody gets upbeat because they get excited, because in freedom we can find our answers. In peace we can find prosperity. So it is a really upbeat message, and evidently it comes across more upbeat even from my viewpoint, because I sound like I have to tell people the truth. But maybe telling the truth makes people upbeat.
Congressman, would you buy stock these days?
Well, maybe if they invested in gold and silver, I might buy stock, but no, I wouldn't be buying stock. But I'm not an investment advisor. I'm not doing that right now.
But you do like gold and silver, tangible assets, more than, I guess, these paper assets.
There you go. Paper assets are very, very bad. And, you know, the history is with me, because paper money never lasts. They say, you know, that it's ridiculous to go to something as ridiculous as a gold standard. But most of history has picked gold. And if history proves us correct, we will go back to a commodity standard of money, because people are now in the midst of losing trust in the paper money system, the fiat dollar system that has been around for 40 years. It's never happened before. It's the biggest financial bubble in the history of mankind, and it's unwinding. It's just started 4 years ago. It started. But wait till they unwind the bond market and the dollar reserves around the world. Believe me, there is going to be a demand and an outcry for monetary reform.
If you became president, would you dramatically cut Social Security? You've said a lot of big government programs are simply outliving their usefulness and going way beyond what they were originally supposed to do. So is that your way of saying, if I become president, I'm scaling Social Security way back?
That's not exactly my position, but I do believe adjustments are necessary. But what I would do, and what I emphasize, is that young people ought to be able to opt out. If you can opt out, we argue the case, all Republicans argue the case for opting out of Obamacare. I want people to opt out of all the social programs. Let the young people go into the marketplace, get out of the Social Security system and all these government programs. But then the question is, how are you going to take care of the people? Does that mean you're going to cut those on benefits? No, you really don't have to. You work your way out of it. But the big problem is there's no desire to cut, because they're still arguing. There's, you know, the militarism and the Pentagon business, nobody's allowed to talk about it. And we're spending trillions and trillions of dollars on wars that we have no intention and no possibility of winning. So that's where we get hope, by bringing these troops home and saving enough money to take care of some of these people that we have taught to be so dependent. So no, you do not have to start by throwing people out on the streets that have become dependent unnecessarily on government welfare.
Real quickly and finally, he didn't work out as a roommate for you. If you became president, would there be a spot in your administration for your son, Senator Rand Paul?
Well, I don't know whether that be legal or not, but I'd certainly call him up on occasion, because he's pretty good at politics, and he'd be a pretty good advisor.
Well, John Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, they got over that issue. All right, Congressman, good luck today. We'll watch what happens. Very good having you.
Thanks, Neil.
All right, Ron Paul, he polls, in fact, very, very well in these Iowa various polls.